So before we start, a notice. Yesterday there was a Ajax class. Hope you know that, all of you. And I've uploaded the records. I've in the Dropbox folder. So what I did is, in your folder itself, August 6:30 p.m. folder. So you got records folder, right? In that I've added JavaScript and Ajax folder. In that you'll find JavaScript and Ajax classes. Okay. JavaScript is classes for around 3 hours, and Ajax for around 1.5 hour or more than that. Yeah. Okay. So please find those records, JavaScript and Ajax records, in your folder. Yeah. Okay. Good. So after some time, I'll also add that code. So in the last class, we were talking about the cache. Okay. So especially we were concentrating on second level cache. You know what is the purpose of second level cache, right? So why do we use second level cache? So second level cache, you see, mainly it helps us to reduce the number of DB interactions between the database server and the application, right? Yes. So second level cache, you see, using the second level cache, you can maintain the DB records, the database records, close to the application. We can have a copy of the DB records close to the application in the memory. So whenever we fetch the records, so we're going to store them in the memory. Yes. We're going to store them in the memory. Yes. I'm sorry. So this helps us to repeatedly interact with the database server for the same records. So that is the advantage. Yeah. So in the last class we saw that, like, we got several cache implementations which we can make use of. Third-party cache implementations, I can say. Like, you got, what are the list of third-party cache implementations? Can you people tell me? So let me see. What are the list of? Can you people list on the third-party cache implementations? Yes, you have EH cache, OS means Open Symphony cache. Then we got spam cache, and JBoss tree cache. JBoss tree cache. Yes. So these are the different types of cache implementations. You got four. What are they? EH cache, OS cache. OS means Open Symphony cache, I can say. Next, we got Swam cache and JBoss tree cache. So these are the various cache implementations. Yes. Okay. Now out of this, the most popular cache implementation is EH cache itself, widely used one. Now, and one more thing here, if you want to use EH cache, as I told you people, you have to download the libraries, which are not you don't need to. If it is EH cache, you don't need to explicitly download them. You see in that Hibernate libraries itself, you'll find optionals. In the optionals, definitely you should be able to see the Hibernate, sorry, EH cache libraries also. You'll find EH cache folder in that you should see that EH cache libraries. So you need to add them. Next, so if you want to use EH cache, so you have to enable EH cache. If you want to use EH cache, first of all, we need to enable EH cache. So how to enable EH cache? Not only EH cache but also second level cache. By default, second level cache is not enabled. Okay, sorry, just a second. By default, second level cache is not enabled. So we have to explicitly enable the second level cache. So how will you enable second level cache? You see, this is the statement. Hibernate cache, use second level cache. So that is one of the properties in the Hibernate configuration file. That is one of the properties, I can say. Okay, yes. So which helps us to enable EH cache. Okay, yes. Next, we have to enable query cache also. Query cache means the records which are fetched as a result of executing a query. So that records we have to explicitly ask EH cache to Hibernate to cache them. I'm sorry. We have to explicitly ask Hibernate to cache them. Yes. So next, if you want to use EH cache, then this is the property which you need to add. This is the property which you're supposed to add here. Okay. Yes. So now, once you do this, the EH cache will be enabled. EH cache is enabled. Now, for EH cache, you got a separate configuration file which you need to create. And one more thing, After enabling EH cache now, you need to specify the details about the entity objects which you want to cache. By default, not all objects are cached. Okay, by default, not every object is cached. By default, not every object is cached. So we have to explicitly enable that cache. So how will you do that? You see, you have to configure which objects you want to cache this way. For example, if you want to cache this objects, then you see, you need to configure using cache annotation. Use @cache annotation. Okay, use @cache annotation here. Yes. So this annotation on top of this entity class, it indicates that this item entity objects should be cached. Item class entity objects are supposed to be cached here. Yes. Next, you know, you need to specify that usage. Usage means how exactly this object or what kind of operations generally we perform on this object. That means generally, are we going to only read these objects, or are we going to update or modify the state of these objects after fetching them? So what kind of operations, DB operations you'll be performing on these objects, that details you need to specify. So for example, here this object which you got, you see, just a read-only object. This object which you got here, it's a read-only object. That means this item objects will be fetched. They'll be read from the database server. Then that object state will be simply used, but that item object state is not modified. The item object state is not at all modified here. Yes. Okay. Yes. Yep. Next, actually, why we need to specify the usage details here? What do people think? Why we need to specify the usage details of this object? Because you see, if we provide this details to the cache, then it helps the cache to understand how to maintain these objects. For example, you see, if these objects, if they are only read-only, that means once that object is fetched from the database server, this object is generally these objects, they are residing in the database server, right? They're not frequently updated. Most of the times, the DB operation which is performed is read-only. Most of the times, The DB operations which are performed here are read-only. So that means once this objects are loaded into the cache, you see the cache implementation also need not worry about checking for this objects or checking for this record in the database whether it is by modified by any chance. So you see the each cache need not worry about checking whether this record in the database server is modified by any chance. Okay, you need not bother about it because these records are just read, they are not modified anytime. Those records are only read, they are not modified. Yes. So this way it helps the cache to understand what to do with these objects. Next, let's say read write. Read write means the on this records, item records, I can say that you'll be frequently modifying them and reading them. These are the both. These are the most common operations which we perform on that objects, on that records. I can say time records. That means in this case, so EH cache should make sure that it will regularly check for that records in the database server for any updates. If the record is modified or if it is updated by any chance, you see here you will find that it has to refresh that record. It is supposed to refresh that record here. Okay, it is supposed to refresh that record. Yes, fine. So it has to regularly check for this records in the database server. If there is any change to that record, so that record has to be updated here. That state of that record should be updated with this object state which is in that cache. Yeah, cached object should be updated, right? Yes. Okay, next you'll find transaction. Transaction means transactional means transactional means transactional means I'll tell you people. Okay, I'm not talking about transaction, it's transactional. So which indicates that there is a possibility that more than one record, sorry, more than one transaction may operate on this objects. More than one record may operate on this object. Okay, that is what transaction means. So more than one transaction may operate on this record. So what will be the issue if more than one transaction operates on this row or on this record? You may have isolation issues. So that should be taken care. So cache should make sure that such issues are avoided. If any isolation issues, if there is any possibility, it should avoid that. But you see, if you have so if you have such requirement where there for transactions, you better go for JBoss tree cache. Okay, you better go for JBoss tree cache. Yes. Okay, fine. So this way, you see, we'll specify the usage. That means how exactly this records will be used in the application. How exactly these records are used in the application. Yes. So it helps the cache to maintain that objects accordingly. Yes. Okay, fine. Next, we'll talk about a configuration file. We'll talk about a configuration file here. eh.xml file. eh.xml file. So your eh cache will definitely use this file. Okay. So in this configuration file, you need to specify the cache details. How exactly you want that cache to maintain the cache. That means how many objects you should have in the cache. How many objects you want in the cache. So there are proper metrics for this. How many objects you want the cache to maintain. How many objects you want the cache to maintain. Yes. So for example, you see that details will specify them here. I'll show you people. You see default cache. This is the element, one of the elements in this cache XML file. So the default cache element is used to configure the default configurations for the cache here. I can say, you see max elements in the memory is 10,000. So maximum of 10,000 objects you can have in that cache. Okay, 10,000 objects you can have them in the cache. Okay. Next, you know, eternal equal to false. That means this object will be retained like that in the memory, in the cache memory, in the cache, till the cache is up and running. If you set it to true, that is what happens. As of now, eternal is false. Okay. As of now, eternal is false. That means these objects will be deleted. How, on what basis we'll see that. On what basis they will be deleted, we'll see that. Next, you see time to idle seconds. So this property here, so it is used to specify how long that object can sit idle for 120 seconds, not milliseconds, it's seconds, 120 seconds. So after 120 seconds, say that object, if it is still idle, then it will be destroyed. Okay, if the object is sitting idle for 120 seconds, then it will be destroyed. Okay, that means that object is not used, so it can be destroyed. You can increase the time also, it need not be 120. All this metrics which you're looking at here, they are not fixed, they are not of any standard here. You can modify that based on your requirement. Next, time to live seconds. That means once the object is cached, so how long it should be retained in the cache. How long you want that object to be retained in the cache. So 120 seconds. So after 120 seconds, what happens? Even though that object is used or not, it doesn't matter. So it will be removed. If the time period expires, the object will be removed. Time to live seconds. Overflow to disk. For suppose if that cache is full, there is not enough space. There is not enough space in the memory, in the primary memory. So cache is also primary memory itself. It uses second level cache also. It uses primary memory itself to maintain that objects. Means RAM, primary memory, you know that. So if that allocated memory for this second level cache is full, for the cache memory will be allocated. If it is full, then what to do with these objects? So few objects can be written to the disk. You can write them to the disk. Object state can be written to the disk. Okay, just a second please. Okay, next you see, yeah, return to the disk. That object state will be returned to the disk here. So this concept we saw that how can we write the object state to the disk? What is that concept? We did discuss about it in core Java. Writing the object state to the disk. Disk means secondary storage, that is to the files. Writing the object state to the files here. Yes. So what is that concept? Yes. Serialization. Object serialization. So we have discussed about it, right? So if you want to write the object state to the file, so first of all it has to be serialized. So convert that object state to sequence of bytes, then you can write it to the file, right? So that serialization concept will be used here. So for what purpose? You see, the objects which are in the memory, in the primary memory, we can write them to the flat files, that is to the secondary storage. So for that, object serialization concept will be used. Okay, yes, writing that object straight to the file. So if it is needed, again, it can, that object can be read back from the file here. Yes, from the disk or from the secondary storage, I can say. Yes. Next, you see, this is the default configuration for that cache. This is the default configuration. That means it will be applied to all the entity objects. By default, it will be applied to all the entity objects. For suppose, let's say you want to configure the settings for the for a particular entity objects. Again, you got special configurations you want to configure specially a particular entity object. Okay, then in that case you have that option. Okay, for each type of entity object, again separately you can configure. For example, you see, you can use this cache element here for that purpose, and we are specifying that entity class name. What is it? Category. Category. So this category objects, how exactly you want those objects to be maintained here? Category objects, how exactly you want them to be maintained? Okay, so first of all, you have to set the name for those objects here using this region property. Use the region property to set that name. Yes, for example, you want this category objects to be cached. You want category objects to be cached. Okay, yes, so we can do this at the rate cache, say usage, say read only, and region attribute is used to configure the name for this entity objects. Now this category objects will be referred by this name category. Okay, in small case, you see that name itself you'll be using here in the cache, name equal to category. Yes, now how exactly you want the cache to maintain this category objects? How exactly you want the cache to maintain the category objects here? See, max elements should be how many? That means how many category objects you want in the cache? 500. Out of whole configuration, the default configuration is 10,000. So out of 10,000 objects, we should have 500 category objects here. Okay, yes. Next, eternal equal to true. Just now we have discussed. Eternal means eternal equal to true means that means this objects, you know the meaning of eternal, right? The same is the case here. That means these objects, once they are loaded, they should not be removed. They should not be deleted from the cache. So these objects should not be deleted from the cache here. That is what eternal equal to true means. Okay. Yes. Next, idle to time to idle seconds. That means these objects, if they are idle for 300 seconds, these objects, if they are idle for 300 seconds, then what to do with these objects? Yes, what will be done to these objects? They will be destroyed or they will be removed. But you see, we have set the eternal property to true, right? So this idle to live seconds will be ignored. Idle to live seconds will be ignored. So that I want to tell you people, that's the reason why I've added it. So that means these objects will not be removed. Even though the objects sitting idle, they will not be removed because eternal property you have set it to true. Yes. Next, time to live seconds also. You see, generally, now I'm showing you people the settings. This way we can do that. So once they're eternal, that means they will not be removed. So all this properties configuration is waste. So time to live seconds also we don't need to specify it, right? So because they are eternal, they'll be retained like that. So otherwise, you see, time to live second means how long you want this objects to be retained in the cache. How long you want this objects to be retained in the cache. So how long this object should be retained in the cache? For 600 seconds. After that they will be removed. If they are not eternal. If they are eternal, they won't be removed. Overflow to disk true. That means these objects, they can be returned to the secondary storage. The objects can be returned to the secondary storage. Okay. Yeah. So this way you see, for a particular entity object, we can configure the details how you want the cache to maintain this objects. How you want the cache to maintain this objects. You see, we're able to configure those details. Yes. So is it clear for you people? So let me know if you got any questions. Okay. Similarly, you can configure the details about the other objects also. See, item cache name equal to item. That means now this configuration which you got here, it is specific to the item objects. So we got the default configurations, right? So, but you see, for these two objects, the default configurations will be overridden because you are configuring these details explicitly, right? Those default configurations will be overridden in this case for these two objects, for customer objects and for the item objects. Okay, fine. So you need to add this cache XML file to the application by configuring the details. So I will provide you the details. Sorry. So let me export this project here first of all and add it to the Dropbox straight away. Just a second. So I'll create a folder with the name Hibernate code. So you can find that Hibernate code in the folder. Yes. Okay. Yes. Other cache implementations, I want you people to explore it on your own. Yes. Next, I'll show you the official site of cache. You can just check once. Now, you know, cache not only provides the support for database caching, but you have they have other so functionalities also. Okay, so this is the official site. Just a second. And documentations. You'll find some user guides and all. You can just check this once. Okay, please refer to this official site here for more details. Yeah, you can check that site. Fine. So now this is about your Hibernate. So let's move on to the next framework. Actually, I've asked you people to use Hibernate. Hibernate in your web applications, and try to use Hibernate with struts applications. Did you people try that? Yes, did anyone try that? Okay, good. So were you able to use that Hibernate with struts successfully? Okay, great. Yeah. So others also. Okay, okay, Ritvik. So are you able to do that? Very good. So this will just help you people to boost your confidence. So that's the reason why I've asked you people to do that. Yes. So I guess it's not uh, much complicated. All you need to do is just add that Hibernate libraries and add that configuration files and start working with it. Yeah. Okay. Good. So today, as I told you people, we are going to start with a new framework as well. So I'll introduce it, you people to that framework. Yes. So we are done with this Hibernate. So we'll use in Hibernate in with Spring again. Okay, we'll talk about that Hibernate and Spring integration. Okay, so far we saw a couple of frameworks like Hibernate. We saw Struts too. Now what you understood, you see, Struts 2 framework. We use it for developing web applications. But before I talk about Spring, I would like to once review this frameworks which we have discussed earlier. Well, so that you'll better understand Spring framework. Okay, Struts 2. So why it is used? To interact with the, sorry, to develop web applications. So apart from web applications, can we develop any other type of applications using Struts 2? Can we use Struts 2 to develop any other type of application other than web applications? Can we develop any other type of applications other than web? I can say it is not possible. Using Struts2 framework, at most we can only develop web applications. Okay, so that's the reason why Struts2 is called as a web framework. It's called as a web framework. Now, how about Hibernate? So why did we use Hibernate? Okay, now you should tell me. So how did we use Hibernate here? Yes. So it is used to interact with the database server. You know what? This kind of framework is actually called as persistence framework. Persistence framework, or it is called as ORM framework. Okay. Persistence or ORM framework. So which is purely used for DB interactions. Other than that, you can't do anything with Hibernate. And you'll find that there are other frameworks also in Java, like for example, JSF is there. So JSF is also a web framework used for developing web applications. Access to for developing web services. It's a web services framework, I can say. So now why I'm talking about this framework is that I want you people to understand that each framework here is actually specific to an area, specific to an area. Each framework is specific to an area. Yes. For example, struts to JSF is specific to web area. That means we develop web applications using struts to and Hibernate. Whereas struts to and JSF, I'm sorry. So whereas Hibernate is specific to database. It only deals with database. It is very much confined to the database here. Yes. Now access to framework, it is used for web services, development of web services. That is what you can do at most with access to framework. Yes. That is what at most we can do with access to framework. So what about Spring then? It is specific to which area? It is confined to which area? Is anyone familiar with Spring framework? Can you people talk about Spring framework? Don't hesitate. Whatever you know, tell me. Yes. Okay. Struts is also for web applications. Only for web applications. Okay. You know, yes, of course, Okay, let me see other answers once. You know, Spring Framework, you can call it as an application framework. Application framework or an enterprise level framework. Yes. You see, the term application, it is more generic, right? It is more generic. So that means I can say that we can use Spring to develop any type of application. It is not just confined to web. Okay. So you can develop enterprise applications. Spring is widely known for the development of enterprise applications here. Yes. Even web applications. Okay. Yes. You can also use Spring Framework in normal standalone applications as well. Okay. You'll find that you can use it for simple or normal applications also, for standalone applications also. Okay. Not just specific to web enterprise, but even for the standalone applications you can use it. Yes. So that is the first thing which you need to understand. So which makes this framework, you know, unique compared to other frameworks. Next, I can say Spring is an integration framework. We can call it as a integration framework. So what does that means? So integration framework means, you know, I can say that it provides very good support to integrate Spring with existing Java technologies and frameworks. Whatever the Java technologies you have, whatever the frameworks you have in Java, whatever the components you have in Java, you can integrate with Spring easily. Like you can integrate Spring with struts. You can integrate Spring with Hibernate. You can integrate Spring with web services. Almost with everything in Java. Any framework in Java can be integrated with Spring. So that kind of support for integration is provided in Spring Framework. But what is the advantage of integrating Spring with other frameworks? Why we have to do this? Yes. What is the advantage of integrating Spring with other frameworks? Okay, to develop enterprise applications, we need to integrate, or we need that integration support. That is what you're saying. Okay, you know what? I can say that here, integration support not only can be used for enterprise applications. Okay, integration support is not only used for enterprise applications, but you will find that you may need it for any other application. For example, let's say you're developing a web application. So if you're developing a web application, you see in that application, that application may have a large database schema. It might be using a very complex database schema. Lot of tables are there, associations are there, and all. So in that case, you may need Hibernate for that purpose to manage the database, right? So for developing web application, you might be already using struts. You might have decided that you'll use struts. Along with struts, now you can integrate Hibernate, right? So that means we will be able to use multiple frameworks together, avail or avail the features of multiple frameworks to develop the application. Now you will find that here you can use the components of multiple frameworks for developing an application. So this way you got a lot of flexibility here, and you got a lot of options for developing the application. Now you're using the components from several frameworks together for developing the application. Yes. So is it clear for you people? So you can choose the components from different frameworks by integrating them, make use of them here to develop the application. Yes. Okay. So that kind of integration support. Now, sometimes what happens is when we talk about integration, it might be little difficult to work with integrating or to you integrate several frameworks together. So if you're using Spring, it, it greatly simplifies that integration process, I can say. If you're using Spring, it will greatly simplify that integration process. Yes. Okay. Next, Spring provides a container called as IOC, inversion of control container is there, which is unique in itself. No other framework has got this kind of container. No other framework has got this kind of container, which is provided by Spring Framework. So that inversion of control is very important topic here, and it is also known as dependency injection. That inversion of control is also known as dependency injection. Yes. So have you people heard about this dependency injection concept? Have you people heard about dependency injection concept? So can someone tell me what is this dependency injection? Okay, don't worry if you're not familiar. So first of all, you see, understanding this container is important. You'll find that in Spring framework, whatever the objects which we use, they're called as beans. Okay, bean, or it is called a Spring bean, or in short, we say just a bean. So you'll hear this term called as, you see here you'll use this term called as bean a lot. Bean means any Java object. Bean means any Java object. Whatever the Java objects which we use in Spring framework, they're called as beans. Please make a note of it. Fix this in your minds. So from now on, you'll hear this term a lot in Spring framework. Bean means it is nothing but any Java object. Yes, any Java object which we use in Spring application. So any Java object which we use in Spring application is called as a Spring bean, or in short bean. You know, you'll find that in Spring framework, the Spring container, you can call it as a Spring container or IOC container, is responsible for managing the life cycle of the beans. Beans means spring beans, as I told you people. Okay, yes, is responsible for managing the life cycle of the beans, I can say. Okay, yes, spring container is responsible for managing the life cycle of the beans. Beans means any Java object which we use in Spring framework is known as a bean. That means this is similar to your web containers. You see, web containers, they manage the life cycle of which components? They manage the life cycle of which components? Servlets, right? Here, you see, a web container is responsible for instantiating the servlet, initializing the servlet, placing the servlet into service, destroying the servlet. Similarly, here the Spring container is responsible for managing the beans. Beans means they are not servlets. Web servlet, or sorry, web container is only responsible for managing the servlets. But here the Spring container can manage any type of bean, but not servlets, okay? But not servlets. Any Java object or Spring beans, I can say, which we use in that application, that they can be managed by the Spring container. So this is one of the important difference you'll find. So any Java object, even a plain old Java object can be managed by a Spring container here. Yes. So next, you know what? The Spring container is uh, provides Spring container provides dependency injection service. It provides dependency injection service. It provides dependency injection service. So this is one of the most important thing. What is dependency injection? Dependency injection means providing all the dependencies which are needed for a particular bean, supplying all the dependencies which are needed for a particular bean. So, but first of all, you need to understand the term dependency, not dependency injection. First, it is important to understand what do we mean by dependency. I mean the term dependency, what does it mean exactly? Dependency means it is nothing but dependency is a is an object which is needed for another object to accomplish a task or a goal. Dependency means dependency is an object. Okay, dependency is an object which is needed for another object to accomplish a task or a goal. Okay, so hope you people got it. Okay, now dependency injection means supplying those dependencies. So can you people give me some examples of dependencies? Examples. Uh, Not hibernate jars, I can say. I said objects. Objects. For example, if you take a DO connection object is a dependency, sorry, for DO. Am I right? A DO, in order to interact with the database server, it uses connection object, right? So for an object, there can be one or more than one dependency. There can be one or more than one dependency. Okay. Can you people give me such example? Any other example? I gave you one example, right? No? Okay. One more example. Let's say you see, for suppose if you're using DO, if you're using Hibernate in DO, instead of JDBC, you can use Hibernate. In that case, what are the dependencies? At least now you can you people tell me? I gave you people a hint now. In that case, what will be the dependencies for the DO? So what are the objects which it needs? Very good. Session factory, session transaction object. Yes. In that case, dependency list is session factory object, session object. It may need a sorry, it may need a transaction and so on like this, right? Yes. So hope everyone got it. Now here you see in Hibernate you'll find that sorry in Spring framework you'll find that the Spring container itself is responsible for managing the dependencies for the bean. That means what are all the beans what are the dependencies which are needed for a particular bean? What are all the dependencies which are needed for a particular bean? You see, they are supplied by the Spring container itself. That is dependency injection. Okay, dependency injection means supplying the dependencies which are needed for a particular bean. Supplying the dependencies which are needed for a particular bean. Okay, yes, that is dependency injection. So far you see, we used to explicitly write the code to acquire the dependencies which are needed for any object, right? But now you see, we can just leave it to the container. So you see that you'll find that there are a lot of advantages for this. You'll find that there are many advantages for this. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that means Spring Framework is an application framework. You can use it to develop almost any type of application. That is the first point. It's mainly used for enterprise application development also. Next, it's an integration framework. It helps you people to integrate Spring with many existing technologies and frameworks in Java, I can say. Next, it acts as a container, which is responsible for managing the beans and also supplying the dependencies which are needed for a particular bean. It will also supply the dependencies which are needed for a particular bean. Yes. Okay. Yes. So this is the introduction to the Spring framework. So we have to go through the Spring modules and all. But I have a question for you people. Just tell me yes or no. So are you people available today evening at 8 p.m. Central Time? 8 p.m. means 7:30 a.m. Indian time for me. So there won't be any confusion with the timings. I'm sorry, last time we had that issue. So just say yes or no quickly. So 8 p.m. Central Time. Okay, good. So 8 p.m. to probably couple of hours. Okay. Yes. Fine. So that means we'll meet today evening at 8 p.m. Central Time. Please use the same meeting link. I guess these are the regular entities. I don't need to mail you people again, but still I'll try to do that. Please attend the class. Okay. Yes. Fine. That's all. So we'll meet in the evening then. Thank you all. Bye bye.